The smell of bleach and stale dust. That was the scent of Ethan Miller's new life. And he hated that smell, just as he hated the first days at a new school, and today was exactly that. The first day at West Hills High School, which was lost somewhere in the sleepy, almost invisible map of Oak Creek, Oregon. Just a month ago, his lungs were filled with the salty breeze of the Pacific Ocean, mixed with the aromas of street food and the endless energy of Los Angeles. There, among the palm trees and the infinite horizon, he could be nobody, dissolve into millions of faces, become invisible. He could sit for hours on the beach, listening to the sound of the waves, or wander the street and getting lost in the crowd, and no one would pay him any attention. Here, in this tiny town where everyone knew everyone, and rumors spread faster than wildfire, he was a target. A new, shiny target that was about to become the object of someone else's curiosity, and then, inevitably, mockery. He felt it, every cell of his body, from the tips of his fingers to the roots of his hair, in every nervous twitch of his muscles, in every rapid heartbeat. The lanky 15-year-old, whose tousled chestnut hair constantly threatened to fall over the large lenses of his thin frames, stood before the massive, almost intimidating red brick building. His school jacket, too loose even for his slender frame, felt heavy like armor, yet offered no sense of protection. He nervously tugged at its hem, feeling the fabric scratch against his wrists. Every rustle behind him, every laugh drifting from the parking lot, made him flinch. In Los Angeles, he was a nerd, a bookworm, but at least there they left him alone. He could blend into the crowd, become invisible. Here he felt that everything could go differently. He felt it in the tension in his shoulders, in the slight tingling at his fingertips, in how his heart pounded deep in his chest like a trapped bird desperately beating against its ribs, threatening to break free. Inside, deep beneath a layer of despair and fear, another energy pulsed, the energy of Kyokushin karate, a black belt, several tournament wins on the West Coast among juniors. It was his refuge, his outlet, his secret strength. He remembered the words of his first sensei, Mr. Tanaka. True strength, Ethan, is not in crushing your opponent, but in controlling yourself. Inside each of us is a wild beast, but the master is the one who can tame it. Your hands are not weapons for attack, but shields for defense. Your legs are used not for running away, but for standing firm. Remember, Ethan, the strongest warrior is the one who can conquer himself. Ethan hadn't fully understood those words back then. Now, as the beast inside him clawed to get out, he desperately tried to hold it back. But his mother's words, spoken countless times, echoed in his head like a mantra. Don't draw attention, Ethan. Just be yourself. Just try to fit in. And he tried. He tried to be ordinary, too ordinary to be noticed, too ordinary to be a target. But today, that strategy felt as fragile as his glasses, ready to shatter at any moment. The school door, heavy and metallic, seemed to groan as Ethan pushed it open. He stepped into the buzzing hallway, where the voices of hundreds of students merged into a single, deafening swarm. Everyone rushed to the morning assembly, their laughter and chatter bouncing off the walls, creating a cacophony that rang in his ears. Ethan tightened the straps of his backpack, trying to make himself smaller, less noticeable. He found his 9th grade classroom. Evelyn Reed, their homeroom teacher, was already standing at the board, her soft yet perceptive eyes scanning the class. She was a woman in her 40s with a kind smile and hair the color of autumn leaves. Ethan felt a slight relief at her presence. She seemed like an island of calm in this ocean of unfamiliar faces. "Good morning, class," Miss Reed said, and the voices in the classroom gradually quieted down. "We have a new student today. This is Ethan Miller. He just moved here from Los Angeles. Please help him settle in." 28 pairs of eyes stared at him. Ethan felt his cheeks flush and his ears burn. He awkwardly waved his hand and mumbled, "Hi." A few people nodded in response, most just continued their conversations. But in the far corner of the class, a group of boys was watching him with undisguised interest. Among them stood a tall, sturdy guy with a short haircut and a self-assured smirk, Jake Harper. His reputation preceded him, reaching Ethan even before he stepped through the doors of this school. Jake was the unofficial king of West Hills. His word was law for many, and his gaze could make others shrink back. Next to him were his loyal henchmen, Brad Thomas, stocky with a bull neck, and Chad Stevens, skinny and wiry, with a perpetual annoying grin. "Hey, city boy, have you only talked to movie stars before?" Jake shouted loudly, his voice full of bonkery, eliciting laughter from his friends. Brad and Chad chuckled gleefully, echoing their leader. Jake leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on Ethan as if he were studying his new prey, assessing its weaknesses. Ethan lowered his gaze, trying to find an empty desk. He knew this strategy. Don't react, don't show weakness, don't give them a reason. He felt it in the tension in his shoulders, the slight tingling in his fingertips, the way his heart pounded deep in his chest like a trapped bird desperately beating against its ribs, threatening to break free. He sat down at an empty desk in the middle of the class, trying to blend into the background, to become part of the wall. The first day of school passed relatively quietly. Jake and his friends limited themselves to a few mocking comments and disdainful looks. Ethan felt their stares on him like physical pressure, like invisible needles pricking at his skin, but he tried not to show it. He answered the teacher's questions quietly but confidently. His grades were impeccable, which only added fuel to the fire of Jake's curiosity and then irritation. Every correct answer seemed to intensify their dislike, as if he were unwittingly taunting them with his intelligence. Maybe it will be okay? Ethan thought hopefully as he gathered his books after the last class. This thought was fragile, like an autumn leaf, and he knew the wind could tear it away at any moment. He walked slowly down the hallway, trying to blend in with the flow of students. His backpack felt unbearably heavy, as if filled with stones. But at the end of the hallway, they were already waiting for him. 3, Jake, Brad, and Chad. They stood blocking the passage, their silhouettes appearing huge and threatening in the light of the setting sun streaming through the windows. "Hey, Miller," Jake called out, his voice low and menacing, like a predator's growl. "How about a traditional initiation for the newbie? We here in Oak Creek love to welcome new people in a special way. Not like in your Los Angeles where everyone is such a softie, just drinking smoothies and sunbathing." Ethan tried to sidestep the group of boys, but Brad, stocky and broad-shouldered, blocked his way. His massive figure seemed like a wall with no escape. Chad, the skinny and wiry guy with the annoying grin, snatched Ethan's backpack from his hands and dumped its contents onto the floor. Textbooks, notebooks, a pencil case with pens. Everything scattered across the hallway amid the laughter of those around. The sound of falling items, the rustle of pages, the clatter of pens on the linoleum. Each sound felt like a blow to his heart. His history notebook, neatly filled with his handwriting, landed right in a puddle left by one of the students, its pages instantly soaking up the dirty water. "Oh, how careless we are," Jake said mockingly, stepping on the algebra notebook. He pressed it down with his foot, slowly grinding the cover as if he were crushing in a bug. "Let me help you pick that up." He kicked the physics textbook with a swing, sending it flying against the wall with a dull thud, leaving a dirty mark on the white paint. Several students passing by stopped to watch. Their eyes were filled with curiosity, some with fear, but no one intervened. The silence, broken only by the laughter of Jake and his friends, felt deafening. Ethan silently began to gather his things. His hands trembled, but he tried to keep them steady. He felt his face burning with shame, while inside everything tightened with helplessness. One thought pulsed in his mind: don't react. In his previous school, he had learned to be invisible, to show nothing, to keep his emotions bottled up, even when everything inside was boiling with rage and humiliation, when blood rushed to his temples and a lump formed in his throat. "Swallowed your tongue, city boy?" Jake grabbed Ethan by the shoulder and sharply turned him towards himself. His grip was strong, almost painful. Ethan felt his muscles tense under Jake's fingers, how his shoulder ached. We don't ignore people when they talk to us around here. In Oak Creek, we look people in the eye. Or are you scared? Please just leave me alone, Ethan quietly said, his voice slightly hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in a long time. He carefully but firmly removed Jake's hand from his shoulder. He tried not to look him in the eye, knowing that it would be perceived as a challenge, like a spark that would ignite the fuse. "Wow, he even has a voice!" Jake exclaimed theatrically, his voice full of false surprise, provoking a new wave of laughter. "Listen here, Four Eyes. There are rules in this school, and right now you're breaking the most important one, disrespecting your seniors. We don't like newcomers who think they're better than us just because they came from the big city." "We're in the same class," Ethan replied calmly, fastening his backpack, which he had finally packed. He tried to speak evenly without trembling. "So technically, you're not a senior, and I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just want to be left alone." Jake's face darkened with anger. His eyes narrowed and his jaw tightened. He swung, his fist flashing through the air, aimed directly at Ethan's face. Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline, his body instinctively tensing, ready to move, to block, to dodge. His muscles felt heavy as lead, but his mind remained clear. He could already see the trajectory of the punch, calculating it in a split second. But suddenly, Miss Reed appeared around the corner. Her steps were light, but her presence instantly changed the atmosphere. The laughter died down. The tension became almost palpable, as if the air thickened. "What's going on here?" she asked sternly, shifting her gaze from Jake to Ethan, then to the scattered belongings on the floor that Ethan had just picked up. "Nothing, Miss Reed," Jake replied with an angelic smile, instantly changing his expression. His voice turned sugary sweet, and his posture became innocent. "We're just helping the new kids settle in, as you asked. He's a bit clumsy, so he dropped his books. We were just showing him where everything is." "Well, that's wonderful." The teacher nodded, her gaze lingering on Jake, but she said nothing. Perhaps she suspected something, but didn't want to create conflict, or simply didn't want to deal with Jake. "Ethan, how's your first day going?" "Fine, Miss Reed," Ethan managed to squeeze out, avoiding looking at Jake, who was now standing there, feigning innocence. He felt Jake's gaze on him like a hot coal burning through his skin. When Miss Reed left, her footsteps fading away, Jake leaned in towards him and whispered directly into his ear, his breath hot and foul. "This isn't over yet, Four Eyes. This is just the beginning. You'll regret moving to Oak Creek. We'll make your life here unbearable." The first week at the new school turned into a real hell for Ethan. Every morning he woke up with a weight in his chest, anticipating another day of humiliation. He felt like a cornered animal, constantly expecting an attack. Stumbling blocks in the hallways had become commonplace, and Ethan had learned to walk, constantly anticipating a hit to his legs. His steps had become cautious and uncertain, as if he were walking through a minefield. He felt his back tense up, always bracing for a shove, his shoulders tightening in preparation for a blow. One day, while sitting in the library, engrossed in a book on astronomy, trying to find refuge among the stars, Chad accidentally knocked over a glass of water onto his notebook, smearing all his notes. "Oops, sorry, nerd. Clumsy hands." "What, can't you see where you're going?" He chuckled, and his laughter echoed through the quiet library, drawing disapproving glances from the librarian. Ethan felt the ink spreading across the paper, destroying hours of his work, as his heart tightened with helplessness. He clenched his fists, feeling his nails dig into his palms, but he didn't move. His body was frozen. Disappearing items from his locker, mocking comments thrown at his back. These had all become part of his daily life. One day he discovered that his gym bag, which he had left in the locker room, was stuffed with trash. He silently emptied it out, feeling his heart clench in disgust. The smell of rotting food scraps mixed with sweat made him nauseous, and he barely held back the urge to vomit. Jake and his friends used the full arsenal of school bullies, from petty pranks to outright taunts. Ethan felt his soul slowly but surely thinning, like paper being burned at the edges. He began to sleep less, lost his appetite, and at night he was tormented by nightmares in which he was trapped, with hundreds of laughing faces staring at him while he couldn't move. But the worst was in the cafeteria on Tuesday. Ethan, holding a tray with a bowl of hot tomato soup and a glass of apple juice, was searching for a free seat. His gaze skimmed over tables full of laughing faces, and he felt invisible, like an outsider. He spotted an empty chair by the window and headed toward it, hoping to be left alone there. At that moment, Chad discreetly stuck out his leg. Ethan lost his balance. The tray flew from his hands. The hot soup, bright red, spilled over his school uniform, burning his skin through the thin fabric of his shirt. He felt the warmth, then the burning spreading across his chest like acid seeping deep inside. The glass of juice shattered with a deafening crash, shards scattering across the floor. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Hundreds of voices merged into a single cruel chorus. Ethan stood there, drenched in soup, with wet hair, feeling something sticky trickling down his face. The humiliation was so intense that he felt his eyes sting, and a lump rose in his throat, as if he had swallowed a stone. He wanted to scream, but his voice was trapped deep inside. He felt his body trembling, his muscles tensing with repressed rage, as blood pounded in his temples. Jake, watching the scene with satisfaction from his seat, loudly commented, "Look, the city kid can't use a spoon. Maybe we should give him a fork, or just send him straight to the pigsty. He's a pig." Ethan couldn't respond. He just stood there, head down, feeling the weight of hundreds of curious, mocking, and sometimes sympathetic gazes on him. He wanted to sink through the floor, to disappear. He didn't see Miss Reed sitting at the teacher's desk, frowning but saying nothing. She merely shook her head, as if resigned to the inevitable, as if this were part of school life that couldn't be changed. Ethan simply took his tray and left, leaving behind a wet red trail that followed him like a shameful mark. He walked, feeling each step resonate with pain in his soul as his lungs burned from suppressed sobs. Every evening, returning home, Ethan locked himself in his room. The smell of soup on his clothes haunted him, seeping into his skin, his hair, his thoughts. He would drop his backpack, take off the humiliation-soaked uniform, and approach the punching bag that his mom had allowed him to hang up. This was his only outlet, his way of letting off steam without harming others. A punch, another punch, a turn, a kick. The movements, honed to perfection over years of training, helped him not to lose it, not to lose control. Sweat dripped down his face, his muscles burned, but this physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in his soul. He envisioned the faces of Jake, Brad, Chad, and each strike was an attempt to beat out the accumulated anger and humiliation. He hit until his fists began to ache and his lungs burned. Only then did he feel some relief. Sometimes, when his strength left him, he would simply fall to the floor, leaning against the cold wall, and silently cry, feeling the tears burn his cheeks. He whispered to himself, "I can't go on like this. I can't. Why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just stand up to them?" "Ethan, are you okay?" his mom would ask, her voice full of concern. She often peeked into his room, noticing his dull gaze, his silence at dinner. She saw how he flinched when he heard the phone ring, how he avoided looking people in the eye. "How's it going at the new school? You seem withdrawn. You hardly eat. You've lost weight. You look pale." "Just getting used to it, Mom," he replied, trying to sound upbeat, but his voice came out flat as if he were speaking from underwater. He didn't want to burden her with his problems. She already had enough on her plate. After the divorce from his father, who moved to another state and hardly supported them, she worked 2 jobs, as a waitress at the local cafe Cozy Corner and as a janitor at West Hills School, just to make ends meet in their new town. Her exhaustion was evident in the dark circles under her eyes, in how she sometimes fell asleep right at the table after coming home late at night, her head drooping to the side, her breathing deep and intermittent. Ethan felt guilty for being yet another problem, another burden for her. He saw how hard she worked for him, how her hands, once gentle and smooth, were now rough and red from labor. He saw her at school, mopping the hallways, her back bent, her movement slow. This sight squeezed his heart, filling him with a sense of helplessness and anger. He had to be strong for her. He had to protect her from his problems. He had to protect himself. He had to become someone who doesn't break. Memories of Los Angeles flooded back to him, of his first sensei, the old, wise Japanese man, Mr. Tanaka, who taught him not only karate, but also philosophy. True strength, Ethan, is not in crushing your opponent, but in controlling yourself. Inside each of us is a wild beast, but the master is the one who can tame it. Your hands are not weapons for attack, but shields for defense. Your legs are not for running away, but for standing firm. Remember, Ethan, the strongest warrior is the one who can conquer himself. Your spirit must be unshakable like a mountain, and your actions swift like lightning. Ethan hadn't fully understood these words back then. Now, as the beast inside him threatened to break free, as rage and humiliation loomed to consume him, he desperately tried to hold it back, clinging to every word of his sensei. He envisioned his calm face, his wise eyes, and that gave him strength. He recalled how Mr. Tanaka made him meditate for hours to learn to control his mind, his emotions. The mind is your strongest tool, Ethan. Use it. On Thursday, the situation escalated to the breaking point. After gym class, when everyone was changing in the locker room, Jake approached Ethan's locker. Ethan felt his presence even before he saw him. A cold shadow fell over him, and he felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He tried not to look up, focusing on tying his shoelaces, his fingers trembling, and his heart pounding in his ears. "Wow, all straight A's," Jake exclaimed, pulling his report card from the locker. He held it like a trophy, waving it in front of the other guys who immediately gathered around, anticipating the spectacle. "Guys, we have a real nerd here. He probably studies all night while we live it up. What if he's just copying? Or maybe his mom does his homework for him. What's up, Miller? Does mommy help you be smart?" "Please give it back," Ethan asked, extending his hand. His voice was quiet, but it carried a note of desperation he couldn't hide. He felt his heart constricting with pain, as if it were being squeezed in a vice. "Please give it back." Jake mimicked him in a high-pitched voice, mocking his tone. "Let's see how smart you really are." He pulled out a pen and began writing something in the notebook. Ethan stepped forward, but Brad and Chad immediately positioned themselves between him and Jake, their faces full of anticipation, their eyes gleaming with malice. "Math, English, physics?" Jake mumbled, flipping through the pages, his eyes darting over the grades. "Oh, look at our nerd with some absences." He started marking missed classes that weren't even there, and drawing caricatures in the margins. Ugly, malicious faces resembling Ethan, with huge glasses and skinny arms. He even drew him lying in a puddle of soup, with the caption, "Ethan the Soup Boy." He laughed uproariously, and his friends echoed him. Something inside Ethan began to boil. 7 years of discipline, control, meditation, all cracking under the pressure of accumulated humiliation. He felt his muscles tense as his body subconsciously assumed a fighting stance. His fists clenched, nails digging into his palms, leaving red crescents. He imagined his hand flying forward, his legs striking true, Jake falling to the floor, and his friends scattering in terror. The beast inside him roared, demanding freedom, demanding retribution. He felt blood rushing to his face, his temples pulsing, his throat drying up. He felt his skin burning with shame and rage, his lungs constricting, preventing him from taking a full breath. But no, it wasn't time yet. Not here, not now, not in this dirty, stinky place full of prying eyes. Struggling to compose himself, Ethan, his voice barely audible, simply said, "My mom is waiting. I need to go. She'll worry." "Mommy's waiting," Jake laughed, throwing the notebook to the floor. It fell with a dull thud, pages scattering, and the drawn caricatures stared at Ethan as if mocking him. "Run to mommy, baby. Tell her the mean boys are picking on you. Or do you want us to walk you home? Maybe we'll carry you, little one." "You must be scared to walk alone." Ethan, not looking up, bent down and picked up the notebook. He felt their eyes on him. He felt his heart pounding in his chest, like a trapped bird about to break free from its cage. He walked out of the locker room without looking back, his back straight, but each step was a struggle, as if he were carrying an invisible burden. He felt his body trembling with repressed rage, but he kept walking, step by step, until he found himself outside, under the cold autumn wind. After leaving school, Ethan didn't go home. He couldn't. His legs carried him in a different direction, away from school, away from humiliation. He headed to the local sports club, Oak Creek Fitness, the address he had learned even before moving. It was his last refuge, his sanctuary. There, his coach was already waiting, an old friend of his Los Angeles mentor, Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson was a short, stocky man in his 50s, with graying hair and piercing eyes that spoke of years of experience and wisdom. He was a legend in the karate world in the Northwest, his name known by many, and his reputation was impeccable. "So you're Ethan, huh?" Mr. Davidson asked as Ethan entered the gym. The smell of sweat, old leather, and polished wood filled his lungs, and it was a scent he loved. The smell of home, the smell of discipline and strength, the smell of hope. "Yes, sir," Ethan replied, his voice slightly trembling, but it carried a note of determination. "Your sensei from Los Angeles, Mr. Tanaka, has told me a lot about you." The coach nodded. "He says you have potential that surpasses many. He says you're not just strong but wise. He says you can become great. Show me what you can do. Show me why Tanaka is so proud of you." Ethan gave a short demonstration. His movements were smooth, precise, powerful. Every strike, every block was the result of thousands of hours of training, years of hard work. He felt as if his body was moving on its own, like a separate organism, obeying only instincts. He forgot about school, about Jake, about the pain. There was only him, his movements, and his breathing, which had become deep and measured. Mr. Davidson watched silently, his eyes never leaving Ethan, as if he were reading a book written by his body, his story. "Impressive," he finally said, his voice full of approval. "Your sensei did not deceive. In 2 weeks we have a competition, an inter-school tournament. It will be a serious test, but I think you're ready. Do you want to participate? This will be your chance to show yourself. Not to them, but to yourself." "I want to." Ethan nodded, his voice full of determination, and his eyes burned with fire. "I really want to." This was his only hope. The opportunity to feel strong again, to control the situation, to reclaim what had been taken from him. He felt something new awakening within him, something he had suppressed for so long. It was a feeling of freedom, a sense of control over his destiny. That night, Ethan hardly slept. The situation at school was getting worse, and he understood that it couldn't go on like this for long. His patience was wearing thin. He lay in the dark, listening to the sound of the wind outside, and reflected. He recalled Mr. Tanaka's words. "Karate is primarily an art of defense, not attack. But defense does not mean surrender. Defense means standing firm when others try to break you. Defense is not only a physical action, but also the strength of spirit that allows you not to break. Your spirit must be unwavering, like a mountain, and your actions swift, like lightning. Remember, Ethan, the strongest warrior is the one who can conquer himself. The one who can control his anger, his fear." "But what if I can't?" he whispered into the darkness. "What if I lose it? What if I hurt them? I don't want to be like them." He imagined the faces of Jake, Brad, Chad, their mockery, their cruelty. He felt anger rising within him again, like a wave. He clenched his fists, feeling his nails digging into his palms. But if I do nothing, they will continue. They will bully others, those who are weaker, those who cannot stand up for themselves. He saw his mother's face before him, her tired eyes, and understood that he could not allow himself to break. He had to be strong for her. He had to protect her from his problems, from his pain. He had to protect himself. He had to become someone who does not break, who stands firm. He had to find that line between defense and surrender, between strength and cruelty, and he knew that the only way to find it was to act. The next day, Friday, a turning point occurred. During the big break, when Ethan was sitting in a far corner of the schoolyard under an old oak tree, reading a book on quantum physics and chewing on a sandwich, a girl from the parallel class approached him, Sarah Wilson, a quiet honor student with a blonde braid who always kept to herself. Ethan had seen her in class but had never spoken to her. She looked like a fragile flower, but there was a certain inner strength in her eyes that was magnetic, like an invisible force. "Hi, you're Ethan, right? The new kid." She shyly smiled. Her smile was so genuine, so warm, that Ethan momentarily forgot his wariness, his fears. "Yes," he nodded, surprised that someone had decided to talk to him. "I saw how Jake treats you," Sarah frowned, her eyes expressing genuine concern. "It's disgusting. He has no right to behave like that. No one has the right to behave like that. It's just cruel. And no one is doing anything." "I understand," Ethan shrugged, trying to feign indifference, but his voice trembled. "It's just, I'm used to it. It happens. I just try not to pay attention. It's easier than fighting back." "Don't get used to it." Her voice became firmer with a hint of steel. "Not everyone at school is like that. Many are just afraid to stand up to him. You know, my brother used to face bullying too. His name is Michael. He was 2 years younger than me, and he was constantly picked on. He was just like you, smart, quiet. I saw him suffer. He became withdrawn, stopped going to school. He even tried to..." Sarah fell silent, her eyes filled with pain as she looked away, as if recalling something terrible, something that still haunted her. "It was awful. My parents didn't know what to do. We moved so he could start over. And he did, but it left a scar. I don't want that to happen to you. You don't deserve it. No one does." Jake approached with his entourage. Their shadows fell over Ethan and Sarah like harbingers of doom. Jake walked confidently, his smile wide and sinister. Fear reflected on Sarah's face, but she did not back down. She only clenched her fists a little tighter, her breathing quickened, and her eyes widened. "Look at that! The nerd has a girlfriend!" Jake announced loudly, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he reveled in the attention. "Hey Sarah, are you crushing on this loser? He can't even stand up for himself. He can't even respond. He's just a wimp. He can't even protect his girlfriend." Sarah flushed, but her gaze remained steady. "Leave us alone, Jake. You have no right to say that. You're just a monster. You are just a coward who picks on the weak." "Oh, she's defending her boyfriend. How cute." Jake stepped forward and abruptly knocked the book out of Ethan's hands. It fell to the ground, opening in the middle, its pages crumpled. "What do you see in him? He's a nobody. He can't even stand up for himself. He can't even protect himself. He's just nothing." "At least he's not a disgusting bully," Sarah replied quietly but firmly. Her voice trembled, but she did not look away from Jake. Jake's face twisted with rage. His eyes flared and his jaw clenched. He grabbed the sandwich Ethan was holding and smeared it across the cover of the book lying on the ground. Bread, cheese, lettuce, everything mixed into a disgusting mass. "Nerd," he hissed, his voice full of venom. And turning to Sarah, he added, "You're going to regret getting involved with this loser. I guarantee you that. You don't know who you're messing with. I'll make your life hell. You'll be crying." Something in Ethan switched. It wasn't just a click. It was a thunderous rumble that shook his entire being. It was one thing to mock him, and he had learned to endure. He could withstand blows, ridicule, humiliation, but to threaten a girl who had simply shown kindness, who dared to stand up for him, risking her own safety, that was beyond his limits. It was a violation of all the principles he had been taught. It was something he could not forgive. He felt his blood boiling, his muscles tightening to the limit, his body filling with lead, yet becoming incredibly light at the same time. He felt the beast inside him, which he had kept locked away for so long, now breaking free, but not in blind rage, rather with controlled, honed strength. He felt his breathing deepen and steady, his heartbeat slow, as if he had entered a state of zen. He slowly rose to his feet, his muscles tensed, his body instinctively taking the stance he had honed for years. His eyes, hidden behind the lenses of his glasses, now looked directly at Jake. There was no fear in them, only a cold, steely determination that could burn a hole through a wall. "Apologize to Sarah." Ethan's voice sounded unexpectedly firm, even to himself. He was low, almost growling, and there wasn't a trace of his former uncertainty. He felt each word echoing in his chest, filling him with strength. Astonished by such audacity, Jake froze for a moment. He hadn't expected this from the nerd. His smirk slipped from his face, replaced by an expression of disbelief, and then a hint of fear. He saw something new in Ethan's eyes, something that made him shrink inwardly. "Apologize to her," Ethan repeated, stepping forward, his gaze steely and piercing. "Right now, or you won't like what happens next. I'm not joking. This is your last chance." Wow. A disbelieving smirk appeared on Jake's face, quickly replaced by fury. "You think you can boss me around, Four Eyes? He didn't finish, lunging forward sharply and swinging his fist. His punch was quick and powerful, aimed straight at Ethan's face, full of hatred and contempt. But Ethan, as if expecting it, easily dodged the blow. He stepped aside, maintaining perfect balance, his movements smooth like water flowing past a stone. Jake's fist passed mere millimeters from his temple, slicing through the air. Ethan felt a slight breeze from the passing fist, while his heartbeat remained steady, like a metronome. "Don't do this," Ethan said calmly, his voice even and emotionless, as if he were speaking to a small child. "Just apologize and walk away. This isn't your fight, and you don't want it to become yours. Trust me, you'll regret it." A crowd quickly gathered around them. Students, drawn by the noise, rushed out of the building, stopping midway, their faces expressing shock and disbelief. No one could believe that the quiet newcomer dared to stand up to the school's main bully. A whisper ran through the crowd like an electric charge. "What is he doing? Is he insane? Jake will kill him. He doesn't know who he's messing with. This is the end for him." Jake, even more enraged by his miss, lunged forward, trying to grab Ethan by the collar. His eyes burned with fury and his face was contorted. But his hands met only air. Ethan slipped away again, moving with unexpected ease and grace, like a dancer avoiding collision. Like a ghost. "Coward!" Jake shouted, attacking again, his blows wild and filled with blind rage. He swung his fists, trying to hit Ethan like a wild beast. This time, Ethan didn't dodge. He blocked the punch with a sharp movement of his forearm, his arm as solid as stone, his muscles tensed. The sound of bone hitting bone was dull but palpable, and Jake cried out in pain, pulling back his hand. Ethan seized his arm and, with one smooth, almost invisible motion, twisted it, applying a lock that made the bully bend from sharp pain. Jake hissed, his face contorted. He fell to one knee, clutching his wrist, his breath coming in gasps. "I don't want to fight," Ethan said quietly, his voice barely audible, but each word sounded clear and authoritative. "But I won't let you humiliate anyone anymore. Not her, not anyone else. This ends now. Your power here is over." He released Jake's hand and stepped back, giving him space. Jake looked incredulously at the lanky guy who had just effortlessly neutralized his attack. His eyes were filled with a mix of pain, shock, and rising fear. He tried to get up, but his body trembled. "You're dead meat, Four Eyes," Jake growled, his voice full of hatred. He nodded to his friends. "Get him. Together we'll tear him apart. We'll show him who's in charge. He'll regret being born. He'll regret coming here." Brad and Chad lunged at Ethan simultaneously, their faces twisted with malice, and their eyes burning with a thirst for revenge. For everyone watching, the following second blurred into a hazy picture of movements too fast for the human eye. Ethan moved with inhuman speed and precision, his body a seamless whole, each movement honed to perfection, as if he were part of an ancient dance, as if he were the wind, elusive and powerful. Block, evasion, sweep. Brad, who charged in first, felt a sharp blow to his leg, his balance disrupted, and he crashed to the ground, knocking the air out of his lungs. He tried to get up, but his leg hurt, and his head was spinning. He lay there, gasping for air, his eyes filled with pain and confusion. Chad, attacking from the other side, received a precise hit to the solar plexus. He doubled over, trying to catch his breath. His face turned green, and his eyes bulged from their sockets. He fell to his knees, coughing and gasping for air like a fish thrown ashore, his body trembling. The schoolyard froze in deafening silence. No one could believe their eyes. The quiet newcomer, whom everyone had mocked, had just taken down 3 bullies with apparent ease. Whispers turned into astonished gasps, and then the first applause began to sound. A few students, who had previously been too afraid to even look up, now stared at Ethan with their mouths agape, their faces expressing a mix of shock, admiration, and relief. One guy, who had always been a victim of Jake, even quietly sniffled with relief. "What is going on here?" came the outraged voice of the gym teacher, Mr. Harrison, pushing his way through the crowd of students. Mr. Harrison was a tall, sturdy man in his mid-40s, with a crew cut and a stern face, but there was always a sense of justice in his eyes. He was a former Army sergeant and did not tolerate disorder. He quickly assessed the situation, his gaze sliding over the fallen boys before landing on Ethan, his brows furrowing. "Harper Thomas, Stevens," Mr. Harrison's voice boomed, "to Principal Evans, immediately. And don't even think about running away. I'll take you there myself. This is unacceptable." He turned to Ethan. "And you, Miller?" He looked at Ethan, surprised and something resembling respect in his eyes. "Explain where you learned to fight like that. Ethan, you look not like usual. And why have you been silent all this time? Why didn't you ask for help? You could have avoided this." "I've been practicing Kyokushin karate since I was 8, Ethan replied calmly, his voice steady, but there was a hint of fatigue and relief in it, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. "I didn't want to fight, Mr. Harrison, but they left me no choice. I was just defending myself and protecting Sarah. I didn't want to draw attention. I thought I could handle it myself. I didn't want to cause any trouble." After school, Ethan was called to Principal Evans' office. He expected a reprimand, perhaps even expulsion. His heart raced as he walked down the hallway to her office, each step feeling heavy, as if he were walking on quicksand that could swallow him at any moment. Principal Evans was a middle-aged woman with piercing eyes and a stern expression, but there was always wisdom and understanding in her gaze. She was known for her fairness, but also for her strictness, and her decisions were always final. "Take a seat, Ethan," the principal said, pointing to a chair in front of her desk. Her voice was calm, but it carried authority. She was reviewing some papers, her glasses sliding down her nose. "So, black belt?" she asked, looking up. "And a competition winner on the West Coast? Why have you been hiding this, Ethan? We received a call from your former coach in Los Angeles, Mr. Tanaka. He is very concerned about your situation and what's happening at school. He said you are very talented and very humble. He even expressed regret that you left his dojo and hopes you continue training." "Yes, ma'am," Ethan nodded, surprised that the principal knew about his achievements, and even more so that Mr. Tanaka had called. "I didn't want to draw attention. To draw. My mom always said it's better not to stand out, to be like everyone else. She didn't want me to have problems. She went through so much after the divorce. I didn't want to be a burden to her. The principal thoughtfully tapped her fingers on the desk. The sound of her fingers was the only noise in the office, creating a tense silence. Ethan, I understand your motives, and I understand that you were cornered. Bullying is a serious issue, and we will not tolerate it in this school. Mr. Harrison told me what happened, and the testimonies of other students confirm Sarah's words. You did the right thing by defending yourself and others. You showed courage that many adults lack. We don't have a karate section at school, but we do have a self-defense club. Mr. Harrison runs it. He says you have excellent technique and reaction. How about helping him with the younger classes? You could be a great mentor and teach other kids how to stand up for themselves without resorting to violence, how to control themselves. This is very important. Your experience could save other kids from what you went through. You can be an example for them. These words caught Ethan off guard. He expected punishment, not an offer. His eyes widened in surprise. You want me to teach? Assist, the principal corrected, smiling. Her smile was warm and sincere, and Ethan felt his heart fill with hope. I think this will be a good alternative to punishment for the fight. You will help others, and it will help you. As for Harper and his friends, they are suspended for a week. Upon their return, they will be doing community service at school, cleaning the yard, helping in the library, supervising in the cafeteria. And believe me, Ethan, I will personally ensure that the bullying does not happen again. I don't want anyone in this school to feel the way you felt. We will create a safe environment for everyone. That is my priority. That is what I am responsible for. When Ethan left the principal's office, Sarah was waiting for him in the hallway. Her face was full of concern, her eyes glued to the office door as if she was waiting for a verdict. So, did you get in trouble? She asked, her voice filled with worry, almost a whisper. Actually, no. Ethan still couldn't recover from the surprise. He told her everything, his voice filled with joy and relief, as if he had just won $1 million. I was asked to help with the self-defense club. Can you believe it? I'm going to teach kids. I can't believe it. It's just incredible. Seriously? Sarah beamed, her eyes sparkling like two bright stars. That's amazing. Ethan, you're a hero. I've always wanted to learn how to stand up for myself. My brother, he never could. He's still scared. Maybe you could sign me up, Ethan suggested, feeling a flush rise to his face. He suddenly felt awkward, but her smile was so infectious that he couldn't look away. Definitely, she smiled, her eyes shining. Just promise not to throw me on the floor like those three. I don't want to end up on the floor with a broken nose. Otherwise, my mom will kill me. She's very strict, especially after what happened with Michael. She laughed, and her laughter was light and ringing, like a bell chasing away the remnants of anxiety. I promise, Ethan laughed, and it was the first genuine laugh he had had in a long time. He felt the weight that had been pressing on him begin to lift, as if a huge stone had rolled off his shoulders. He felt light, almost weightless, as if he could fly. On Monday, Jake and his friends returned to school. They clearly avoided Ethan, steering wide around him in the hallways. Their confidence had vanished, replaced by gloom, wariness, and even a hint of fear. The news of what had happened spread through the school like wildfire. Ethan, the nerd, had taken down 3 bullies. It was incredible. Students who had once feared Jake now looked at Ethan with respect, and sometimes even admiration. Some even approached him to say thank you, or just nodded in acknowledgement. The atmosphere in the school had changed. The bullies' laughter grew quieter, their stares less brazen, and the victims of bullying began to feel a little more confident. During the big break, something unexpected happened. Jake approached Ethan when he was alone, sitting on a bench in the yard, reading a book on astronomy. His steps were hesitant, and his gaze avoided meeting Ethan's. He looked anywhere but at him. He appeared disheveled, as if he had just been pulled out from under a truck. His shoulders slumped, and his hands nervously fiddled with the edges of his jacket. "Listen, Ethan," he began, his voice low and slightly hoarse. as if he was struggling to speak. He shifted nervously from foot to foot, his hands clenched into fists, then relaxed, as if he was battling himself to find the right words. About that day, I went too far. And really, with all of this, I was wrong. I shouldn't have acted that way. I was a jerk, I know. Ethan looked at him in surprise. He expected anything. A new threat, an attempt at revenge, but not an apology. He saw in Jake's eyes not only fear of punishment, but also something resembling genuine regret. It was a strange new feeling, empathy for his tormentor. "Don't get carried away," Jake muttered, noticing Ethan's gaze. His face flushed. "It's just that I have probation from the principal. One more stunt and I'll be expelled. And I can't get kicked out of school. My dad, he'll kill me if I get thrown out. He wants me to go to college, play football, get a scholarship. He doesn't care how I feel. He only wants my success. He only wants a champion. I need this diploma. If I don't get in, I don't even know what he'll do. He'll be furious. He'll never forgive me." There was something in his voice that sounded like desperation, a pain that Ethan understood well. It was not just fear, it was a deep, bone-deep anxiety that haunted Jake. "I understand," Ethan nodded. Suddenly he saw in Jake not just a bully, but a person who was also under pressure, albeit of a different kind. He saw in him something more than just aggression. He saw the fear that drove him to act this way. He saw his own vulnerability. "Call it whatever you want," Jake shrugged, his shoulders dropping. "Just let's skip your ninja stuff in the future, okay? And, well, you're cool. I didn't know you, well, we're like this. I've never met anyone who could move like that. You're like out of a movie. You're like a superhero." "Agreed," Ethan extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation that felt like an eternity, Jake shook it. His handshake was strong, but this time without aggression. There was a strange new sincerity in it. The next few weeks, Ethan's life at West Hill School changed beyond recognition. From a quiet outsider, he transformed into one of the most respected students. He no longer hid in the shadows, nor avoided gazes. He became himself, the real Ethan Miller. The Self-Defense Club became unexpectedly popular, especially among those who had previously been bullied themselves. Ethan enthusiastically assisted Mr. Harrison, teaching younger students the basics of Kyokushin karate, but emphasizing self-control and protection. He held classes twice a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, after school in the old school gym, which now seemed filled with new energy. "Your strength is not for attacking," he told them, his voice confident and calm. "Your strength is for protecting yourself and those who are weaker. And most importantly, your strength is in your spirit. In your ability to not give up, in your resilience, in your belief in yourself." He showed them simple but effective techniques, explaining how to use an opponent's momentum, how to maintain balance, how to breathe to control their emotions. He saw their eyes change, how they became more confident with each lesson. He remembered how scared little Timmy was when he came for the first time, his hands shaking and his eyes filled with tears. Now Timmy could perform basic blocks and even smiled. His shoulders straightened and his gaze became more assured. He even started helping other newcomers. Mr. Harrison often watched Ethan, his face expressing approval. "You are a born teacher, Miller," he once said. "You understand that it's not just about the punches, but also about the mind." Sarah became his regular training partner. She was diligent and learned quickly, her movements becoming increasingly precise. Their friendship blossomed into something more. They spent not only training sessions together, but also lunch breaks, discussing books, movies, and dreams for the future. One day they were discussing Dune, and Ethan was amazed at how deeply she understood the philosophical aspects of the book, its ideas about fate and free will. He felt his heart start to race when she smiled at him, how his palms would sweat when he accidentally touched her hand. He had never felt anything like this before, and it was both exciting and a little scary. He caught himself thinking about her while reading books, while training. He noticed how the sunlight danced in her hair, how she scrunched her nose when she was focused, how her laughter sounded like a melody. One day while they were practicing blocks, Sarah laughed and said, "You promised not to throw me to the floor like those three. I trust you, Miller." Ethan laughed, feeling his heart fill with joy and tenderness. They began to walk home after school, simply talking about everything under the sun, about their families, summer plans, and how they both liked Oak Creek. Jake kept his word. He no longer bullied Ethan or the other students. Sometimes Ethan noticed Jake stopping other, smaller bullies who tried to pick on newcomers. One day he saw Jake pull Brad away, who was trying to take lunch from a first grader. "Leave him alone, Brad. We don't do that anymore. It's not cool, don't you get it?" Ethan heard. Another time, Jake stood up for a girl who had her ball taken on the playground, returning it to her. "That's her ball, give it back," he said in a firm voice, and the bullies immediately backed off. He was changing, slowly but surely, and it was evident not only to Ethan, but to the whole school. One day after gym class, as Ethan was packing his things, Jake approached him. His face was serious, and there was a new, unfamiliar humility in his eyes, almost insecurity. "Listen, Ethan," he began, his voice almost shy, as if he was afraid someone would hear him. "I've been thinking. You said you could teach me a couple of moves, just don't tell anyone, okay? My friends, well, in general, I don't want everyone to know. I need to get stronger. For real. Not like before when I just bullied. I want to be strong like you." Ethan smiled. He saw in Jake not just a former bully, but a person searching for his path, wanting to change, seeking true strength. On Wednesday after school, in the gym, just promise to use them only for self-defense, and that you will never use them to bully someone. Never. Your strength should serve good. You should be the one who protects, not the one who attacks. "Deal," Jake nodded seriously, and in his eyes, Ethan saw something new: respect, sincerity, and even hope that was just beginning to sprout. Their secret training sessions on Wednesdays became something special for Ethan. Jake would come to the gym after everyone had left. He was clumsy but diligent. Ethan taught him the basics, showing him how to control his strength, how to use it wisely. They practiced blocks, punches, and evasions. Jake listened carefully, asked questions, and sometimes even share his feelings about the pressure from his father, about the fear of not living up to his expectations. "My dad, he always wanted me to be the best," Jake once said, breathing heavily after a series of punches, his face slick with sweat. "He was a football star in college, and he doesn't understand why I'm not the same. He yells at me if I get a B. He says I am embarrassing the family. He just wants me to be perfect. He never listens to what I want. He just wants me to be his copy." His voice trembled, and Ethan saw pain in his eyes, deep, long-standing pain. "Your father wants the best for you, Pipon," Ethan replied, his voice soft, "but he may not know how to show it." Strength is not about meeting others' expectations, Jake. Strength is about being yourself and using what you have for good. You can be strong in your own way. Jake nodded, his gaze thoughtful. He was gradually shedding his mask of aggression, becoming more open and vulnerable. This was not just karate training. It was a lesson in life, a lesson in understanding oneself and others. In the evening, practicing in front of the mirror in his room, Ethan recalled the words of his first teacher. True strength is not about dominating others, but about controlling oneself and protecting those who are weaker. He had not fully understood this wisdom before. Now it took on a new, profound meaning for him. He was no longer that frightened novice hiding his talent. He had become who he was always meant to be, not just a martial arts master, but a person who uses his strength for good. He felt whole, strong, free, as if he had shed his shackles. His phone vibrated. A message from Sarah had arrived. "Ready for tomorrow's competition? The whole class is coming to cheer for you." Even Jake promised to come. He said he wants to see how a real master works and that he will be cheering for you. We'll all be there. Ethan smiled. his heart filled with warmth. He replied, "Now I am ready. Thank you. I will do my best. And I'm glad you all will be there. Your support means a lot to me. It gives me strength." He approached the window and looked out at the evening Oak Creek. The town was wrapped in the soft light of the setting sun, its streets quiet and peaceful. The smells of dinner wafted from the houses, a dog barked somewhere in the distance, and soft music floated from a neighboring house. He saw the lights on the football field, where Jake might be practicing. He saw the lights in the cafe cozy corner, where his mom might be working, her silhouette flickering behind the window, and Ethan felt a surge of tenderness. He remembered how she had tiredly come home, and this only strengthened his resolve. This town, which had seemed foreign and hostile to him just a month ago, was now becoming familiar. He no longer felt provincial longing, only warmth and comfort, a sense of home. Here he had finally found his place, no longer hiding, pretending, or running away from himself. Ethan Miller, a master of Kyokushin karate, was no longer afraid to show the world who he truly was. He was unbroken. He was ready. The next day, Saturday, the West Hills gym was packed. The air buzzed with anticipation. The scent of sweat, sports ointments, and popcorn blended into a single aroma of competition. The Interscholastic Kyokushin Karate Tournament was an annual event attracting the best young fighters from all over Oregon. Ethan felt a slight excitement, but it was pleasant, familiar, like before stepping onto the tatami in Los Angeles when he was just a little boy starting his journey. He warmed up, feeling every muscle, every joint. His body was a perfectly tuned instrument. His breathing was deep and measured, his mind clear. In the crowd, he noticed familiar faces. Sarah sat in the front row, her eyes shining, holding a sign that read, "Go, Ethan, you're the best." Next to her were his classmates, even Brad and Chad, who looked a bit awkward but still came, their faces expressing curiosity. And, to Ethan's surprise, in the back row he saw Jake. He sat with his arms crossed over his chest, but his gaze was fixed on Ethan, revealing something more than mere curiosity, respect, and even pride. Ethan fought 3 matches. Each was a challenge. The first opponent was quick as lightning, his strikes sharp and unexpected. The second was strong, his muscles rippling beneath his skin, and each of his blows felt like a hammer. The third was incredibly resilient. He did not give up, no matter what. But Ethan moved with grace and precision. His blocks were impenetrable, his strikes lightning fast, his defense impeccable. He did not seek to crush his opponent, but merely to surpass him in skill, using his strength for control rather than destruction. He heard Sarah's shouts, her bright voice, the enthusiastic support of his classmates. He felt the energy of the hall fueling him. In the final, he faced a tall, muscular guy from Portland, known for his aggressive fighting style. His name was Marcus. Marcus was a head taller than Ethan, his arms thicker than Ethan's thighs, and his gaze was full of arrogance. The fight was intense. Marcus delivered powerful, sharp blows, trying to overwhelm Ethan with his mass cornering him. But Ethan remained calm. His movements were economical and precise, like water flowing around a stone. He dodged, blocked, found gaps in his opponent's defense, using his own strength against him. He felt his muscles burning, sweat trickling down his back, but his mind remained clear. Eventually, after a series of precise strikes, Ethan delivered a powerful kick to the torso, and his opponent retreated, breathing heavily, his face paling. The referee raised Ethan's hand. He had won. The hall erupted in applause. The deafening roar of the crowd filled the space. Ethan bowed to his opponent, then to the judges, then to the crowd, feeling his heart swell with gratitude. He felt tired, but it was a pleasant fatigue, the exhaustion of a job well done, of overcoming oneself. He approached Sarah, and she threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly, her eyes filled with tears of joy. "Ethan, you were magnificent," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "I knew you could do it. You're the best." His classmates came over congratulating him. Even Brad and Chad approached to shake his hand, their faces full of respect, and there was not a trace of their previous malice in their eyes. Ethan looked at Jake. He came over, his face serious, but his eyes shone with genuine pride. "Congratulations, Miller," Jake said, extending his hand. You really are a master. I've never seen anything like it. You earned it this. You showed me what true strength is. Thank you." Ethan shook his hand. "Thank you, Jake. That means a lot. Thanks for coming." That evening, sitting at home with his mom, Ethan felt truly happy. His mom hugged him, her eyes full of pride, and a smile played on her face that he hadn't seen in a long time. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've become so strong, not just physically, but here." She placed her hand on his heart. "You've found your place, and you've helped others. I always knew you were special. I always believed in you." Ethan smiled. He told her about the self-defense club, how the kids were changing, how Jake had started training with him, about his struggle with his father. His mom listened attentively, her eyes shining, and she nodded in understanding. "You know, Mom," Ethan said, "I think Oak Creek is now our home. I feel good here. I feel needed here." His mom smiled, and her smile was the most genuine he had seen in a long time. "I think so too, sweetheart. I think so too. We are home here." Ethan approached the window and looked out at the night in Oak Creek. The town was asleep, wrapped in the soft glow of the moon. He saw the rare lights in the houses, heard the gentle whisper of the wind in the trees, the rustling of leaves, the distant barking of a dog. He no longer felt the provincial longing. He felt peace, he felt belonging. He saw the lights on the football field where Jake might be training, imagining his determination. He saw the lights in the cozy corner cafe where his mom worked every day, and his heart filled with tenderness and gratitude. He no longer felt lonely. Here in this small town, he had found not only a place to live, but a place to be himself, where his strength was accepted and used for good. Ethan Miller, a master of Kyokushin karate, was no longer afraid to show the world who he truly was. He was unbroken, and he was ready for any battle that lay ahead, because now he knew that true strength is not just in fists, but in the heart and spirit that never gives up.